Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Sean, and this is Newyankeeautosystems. In today's episode, what we're going to be doing is focusing on our volunteer car, which is the second of our Street Legal Legends car conversion projects. What we're doing with those cars is we're intending to make them street legal. Now, these are both retired race cars, so there has been a lot of stuff that's had to been done on Petty Chevy, but we're going to be putting Petty Chevy on the back burner for now. This is still our pet project car, but this car is our customer car. What we're trying to focus on is actually get this car ready for someone to purchase, at least hopefully by the end of spring, or if by early summer. So what we're going to be doing in today's episode is taking a look over the entire car. I have done a brief overview of the car, and you can see that in our first volunteer episode right here. In that video, we just did a brief overview of the condition of the car. We didn't really dive into too much of the mechanical or how the car actually lays and sits out. We haven't gotten our eyes on it and seen exactly what we have to do with that. That's what today's episode is going to focus on. Now, I have ordered some components for this car. Hopefully, I have found a kit or a series of kits that will work together to make this actually adaptable for street use, such as the headlights, taillights, turn signals. But that's not what our focus is going to be on today. What we're going to do is actually take this car down, take the wheels off, check the wheel bearings, check the brake rotors, check the wiring condition, and make sure there isn't any unexpected gremlins that we're going to need to work on in the future. So that's what our focus is going to be. So we're going to have to get Volunteer over into the limelight, which means Petty Chevy has got to go off into the back for now. Okay, so I've actually put Petty Chevy off to the side where the Volunteer was to get Volunteer a little more centered, hopefully within the light so you guys can see a better video. I'm not really set up as a shooting studio here, but I am trying to at least still give you guys the best content and the best lighting that I can. This spot just seems to work best for that because there is some natural sunlight that comes in from the front door. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick walk around and explain a couple of things that we're looking to take care of with this car, the things that we're looking at, and a couple things that we're not going to necessarily focus on in today's episode. So let's do a quick walk around. What I'm going to focus on is getting the car up onto some jack stands so I can get the wheels off, check the wheel bearings, check over the brake conditions, check into some other mechanical items, and see exactly what I can see on the car. I have not gone into this car just yet. I haven't really looked at anything. The only thing I've really done with this car is push it into the space, make sure it started, and then put it off on the side for now. But that's going to change today. So what we're looking at here is this is the passenger side of the vehicle. We don't see any major damage here. There is some paint flaking on the hood. We might get that addressed, we might not. The hood does not currently sit flat and flush because it was stored off of the car, and it is fiberglass. So the hood has taken a shape of its own. We'll have to see if we can kind of remedy that, get it back into place, get it to secure itself, and reform its shape. Over on the driver's side, not really much to report. There is a bit of damage on that running board, but that's okay. We may see if we can get that knocked out, and we may paint these running boards at some point. Over to the rear fender, there is a big chunk missing out of it. Not sure what we're going to do about that yet. We may just leave that as is and give it its character of a retired race car. Around the back and in the interior of the car, we do have some air pods there that are going to need to go onto the car at some point. We do have a couple of gauges in the car. Not sure if they're operable or not. It looks like we have an oil pressure and an oil temperature gauge. I was told they're not hooked up yet, and from my experience, it doesn't look like they are working. We are missing a steering wheel, so we're going to have to get that. There is some electrical wiring hanging down, so we are going to have to look into that as well. Doesn't seem like there's any issues with the shifter. I haven't really tested it yet, but we're going to have to get to that point. We do still have some racing harnesses installed. As far as their expiration for racing, they did expire in April of 2004, but that is for racing stipulations. I don't know much about racing harnesses and if they should or need to be replaced. Moving around towards the back of the car, we do have our fuel safe already installed in there. That hose does bother me with how crimped it is in there, but I do appreciate that this one has a barbed fitting on it for an outlet. We may see if we can maybe tie that fuel pump and fuel filter over onto this crossbar here, so it's still within the safety cage, but it is a little straighter, and then run the fuel line up along this length if we can. I may utilize a hard line instead of rubber lines because those are very bent and I just don't like it. Next thing, we've got some body damage over there. Not too terribly concerned about that either. The fenders all seem to be intact. They don't seem like they're very loose. I was there when the gentleman was putting this fender and this fender back on, securing them, so I know that they're on there. Trying not to take the fenders off on this one because I don't want to do a complete body breakdown on this if I don't have to. There is some damage here. It looks like they did try to cut this out at some point to fit the header, but the cut is not the greatest. I want to see if I can get in here with my air saw and clean that up a bit, but I am worried about the fact that it's already cracked and that may cause more damage than it's worth. So let's go ahead and get the wheels off and see what we're looking at. Okay, so now that I've got the car up on jack stands and I've got the wheels off, I've got the rear drums off as well, there's a couple of things that I want to do some quick inspections on. I want to check over the brake pad condition, check over the brake rotors. They're going to have some slight rust because this is a very moist environment and it is currently winter. So I'm not so terribly concerned about the rust right now. That'll either come off when I first drive it or I can go ahead and get them machined off at some point. So I'm just going to go ahead around the car and check some quick things. I'm going to check the brakes, brake lines, wiring. I want to make sure to check the engine oil level as well. It was recently changed when I got it. I just want to make a quick visual inspection of that too. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera around, get my flashlight out, and look at a couple things. So we're going to start here on the driver's side, front of the vehicle. I want to look at the shocks and coils and see how they're mounted. The other car that I had, I think it was set the same way. I think the shock was inverted. I may have to change that for clearance issues, but may not. I've got some surface rust on some of my components there, but it looks like all of the Heim joints are there. They don't look damaged. They're probably going to need some lithium grease just for a quick service on them. Looking at the engine, I don't see any immediate signs of any leaks or anything like that. There is going to be some moisture on that as well. The header pipes here are pretty close to the Heim joint. It does look like they have been rubbing at some point. See if I can't adjust that out. Not super happy with the exhaust header wrap on this because they are wrapped all as one at some point, which means there's no adjustability in these headers. The way that they sit is the way that they're going to sit. Taking a look down at the lollipop gusset. From what I can see there, it looks to be intact. Okay, with the steering wheel turned all the way to the left, it looks like it clears, but just barely. It's not really supported anywhere. I might want to reroute this brake line to get some more support. This back part of the rubber hose looks like it could be pretty close to the exhaust header at some point. I'm going to turn the wheel again, put the camera down one more time. And with the wheel turned all the way to the right, the brake hose gains more clearance, as it probably should. I'm still concerned about this being really close to the exhaust, even though it does have clearances. While not being supported, I don't want this brake line to absorb a lot of heat and possibly boil the brakes. That would be bad. That might be a quick fix in making a new brake line or just rerouting where the line goes. We'll try that. Going to try and move the wheel again so we can take a look at our brake pads. Brake pads themselves look to be very thick. There doesn't seem to be any issues there. That caliper boot is torn. I do have a rebuild kit, and I think it should have a caliper boot in it. Right down there in the edge, the boot is torn. So one, I already plan to rebuild these calipers, and I'm hoping it does have a boot kit in it. I'm pretty sure it does, so that shouldn't be a problem. That was on the hit list anyway. The rotors themselves, they look a little more crusty than I would like. What looks to be underneath all this surface rust is some pitting. So I'm probably going to have these rotors machined, if not replaced. Driver's side doesn't look too bad. Not, anything I wasn't expecting already. So we're going to go ahead and jump over to the passenger side. On the passenger side here, again, we can see some moisture. There's the fuel line coming in right here. I don't see anything standing out immediately. Does look like we have a oil vapor catch can, which the other car does not have, so that's cool. Again, looks like these inverted shocks. Oh, well, that's good. Well, this is what inspections are for. This brake line isn't even hooked up. Let's take a look inside the hole. The hole's pretty crusty. So there's going to be some reconditioning needed on this caliper along with the rebuild. The brake pads over here look like they're nice and thick as well. Don't see any immediate torn boots. Doesn't look like any of the shims or clips are missing. Rotor condition again, pretty crusty. A lot of this could be just surface. Spin the rotor. Oh, nope. Can't spin the rotor. It's a little seized. Got a pry bar. Let's see if this will turn. Zoom out real quick. Turned a little bit by hand. I want to see how bad this really is. It'll turn with the pry bar, but it does again get really tough to turn. So a rebuild is definitely in the future for this caliper. Those slides are, well, they probably haven't moved in years. I'm gonna say probably about 10 at least. It's disappointing. I'm glad I'm doing this inspection because there's just no brake fluid there. Let's kind of keep that in place and see what it looks like trying to move that. Just want to get my flashlight somewhere nice. So have some light. Okay. So brake hose is just loosely hitting there. Let's see what our clearances look like once we turn it. Okay. Seems to not really need a lot of support. It's there. It's probably going to need to be replaced. So it's just going to need to be replaced anyway. Let's turn it back the other way. Okay. So brake hose seems okay, but under full lock, we have an issue. We've got an interference. So what I'm seeing here is what I saw on Petty Chevy 2. The tie rod is hitting the strut. I'm definitely going to be able to do and have to do is take up a lot of this slack. That's a really droopy strut. So I'm gonna have to see if I can get some clearance from that being there, and it does look like, yes, this strut is also spaced out. That's probably to keep it from touching this upper control arm. I might be able to flip this spacer onto the back side to move that back a little and then adjust for it. That should give me the clearance I need to keep the strut away from here, hopefully without a spacer here. There might be some swapping of spacers just to make them even, just to gain some clearances. But I'm definitely going to have to adjust this strut to get that spring to sit a lot higher, especially because I don't want this car to come fully unloaded and just have absolutely no suspension. That's a lot of spring travel. So that's going to be something that we're going to have to focus on. I have to check that on the other side as well. I want to thank everybody for making it to the end of the video for the second episode of the Volunteer car. Keep in mind that we do have lots of content available for you guys. We have a bunch of shorts, a bunch of videos with the Petty Chevy. We have a couple of videos with Tony, our personal car, and we just want to keep content coming for you guys. So make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel, New Yankee Auto Systems. We appreciate all of the viewers and feedback and all the comments that we can get. Don't be afraid to comment on one of the videos. I do take it personally to respond to the comments that everyone has, but I do like to keep it light. I try to not get too hard into your opinion versus my opinion. I try to stick more to the facts. Also, make sure to follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/NewYankeeAuto, where we try to keep more of our up-to-date content. Otherwise, thanks for watching this episode of New Yankee Auto Systems. See you on the next one.